music has such an ominous sound to it. We associate it with death and organized crime. Tim, thank you for joining us for this special 4th of July weekend. Wasn't sure if we'd be able to get a show off this week, but thank you for being here. Mark is in New York. And I am taking off in just a matter of days for...
have you been talking about this trip yet for the people? Do they know what you're doing?
Yes, they do. We talked about it on the last show. I think even the last 2 shows. I can't remember when I broke the news. But yes, everybody knows. So I'm heading over to the Azraq refugee camp in Jordan, a 21-hour commute.
Ooh.
It's 21 hours. It is. It's about 16 hours L.A. to Dubai, and then a 3-hour layover in Dubai, and then 3 hours to Amman, and then it's like from Amman to, and then it's 50 miles from Amman to Azraq. So that's probably at least another hour.
I think the last time I checked, and it was a while ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I think on average the temperature in Dubai was floating somewhere around 120 degrees.
Yeah, that's Dubai. I'm not going out. I'm not going outdoors. I am not setting foot outside in Dubai. Dubai is one of those cities where you don't actually have to set foot in the air if you don't want to.
Yeah,
a little like Hong Kong.
Yeah, it's all connected with.
You can literally traverse all of Hong Kong without ever going outside. You can just stay away from the humidity and the rain. You could just get into one of those Japanese malls that's underground. In fact, all the government buildings, it's the Hong Kong equivalent to the Supreme Court. I couldn't believe it. This was years ago when I was in Hong Kong, but you're walking around in an underground mall, huge underground mall. They're all Japanese owned and built, and you look over there, it's the entrance to the Supreme Court in the mall. Like, what? Serious? And then you go, well, why not?
And plus, I didn't have to go outside.
Yeah. So, I'm not going outside in Dubai. I'll just enjoy the 3-hour layover in the airport, and then take some pictures from the air. But then, so it's gonna be great. It's a good bunch of people. Shay Mitchell from Pretty Little Liars is also part of the group, as is the cinematographer for Lone Survivor and Beauty and the Beast. Yeah. He's part of our team too. So it's a really good bunch of people. I feel a little bit outclassed. It's like, wow, okay, well.
Well, I mean, the goal, of course, is to.
The goal is it's a handpicked group of kids from the Azraq refugee camp. These people have been there for years, and if anyone goes online and you look at it, it's the saddest and most depressing thing. The city of Azraq, which is, again, it's 50 miles due east of Amman, is a city of about 15,000 people. The refugee camp directly adjacent to it has 55,000 people.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like that Italian island that was that was Oscar nominated for that documentary, where it's this island of like 3,000 people, and then there's 250,000 refugees that go through. It sort of overloads the local economy. What's noteworthy about the Azraq refugee camp is that it is the first one that is completely self-sustaining in terms of electrical power. It's completely solar powered, which you can do when it's in the middle of the desert where the sun beats down on it all day long, and there's just nothing else around. So I mean, there's plenty of solar power there. So they do have amenities, but at the same time, it's just a giant tent city.
Yeah,
it's like being in an internment camp of your own volition. Yeah. And that's a horrible thing. So I mean, again, as I think most everybody knows, my mother was a refugee, and so I feel like I owe these people something. On her behalf.
It's an interesting thing, the way when we think about immigrants and refugees and people fleeing from one place to another. We tend to think of those people in terms of one sort of socioeconomic class and one or two races, but it's not.
No, it's not.
It has always and forever been a worldwide thing.
It is. It has.
Every Jew in Israel was a refugee. Every single one.
And my mother grew up quite privileged. My grandfather was a gentleman farmer, principal landowner, nice house with servants, and the whole thing. Eastern Front collapsed, and you wave bye-bye to your entire life. and never again to regain that. And it's quite a dramatic story. My mother's story. Crossing a bridge with bombs being dropped all around you, not knowing if the bridge is going to collapse under you. It's some pretty intense stuff. So I feel like on her behalf, I sort of owe it to kick a little bit back and pass something down.
Yeah.
So pay it forward, as they say. So in any case, it's going to be a great experience. And the idea is that there are kids there. They haven't been to school of any significant. I'm sure there's education in the camp, but they haven't really been to school outside of the camp. They haven't had a normal life for many years. So every one of those kids has a story.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that they know they have a story. So as I see it, our job is to go there and to inspire them and let them know they are storytellers.
Yeah, and give them the skills to tell their own story.
Let them know that the tools are out there, and they've never been more affordable. And the UN is buying these kids, and CARE, which is the charity that's partly sponsoring it, is buying these kids, iPads, which hopefully don't get stolen, but it'll at the very least, if you can inspire the artistic soul of those kids, and if any fraction of them are genuinely artists, look, some of the greatest films coming out of France and Italy in the wake of World War II were films inspired by precisely that impulse, and the whole neorealistic movement.
Oh, me and my Dasica, Open City and Umberto D. I mean, that is what that is.
That is. So it's going to be it's going to be a brutal commute getting there. It's going to be a brutal flight back, but it's going to be all good. It's going to be all good. Bringing my camera, bringing my computer, bringing all my gear, and
sunscreen and a hat. All of that other stuff is important, but without sunscreen and a hat,
that's true.
None of that will matter.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. It's going to be a good thing. So, any case, don't know when we're going to have another show. I get back on the 14th, which is a Friday. So odds are we'll probably be able. I'm going to be doing catch up most of the week of the 17th. So we'll probably have a podcast back. I want to say sometime around the 21st, 22nd, something like that. That'll probably be the next show. So stay tuned. Watch the Facebook page. I'll try to put some updates on the Facebook page of things that happen over there. But otherwise, I'm just going to try to learn a lot from the guy who shot Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah,
that's what I want to do. I want to see him in action because he is a terrific cinematographer, a gifted man. We still got an anime backlog here. So before I head off overseas, I'm going to do right by the anime, and I'm going to try to walk you through some of this. I have not watched all of this. I want to point that out. There is literally about 100 hours of anime in what I'm about to go through. I have not had but a fraction of time to skim some of this. So mostly what I look for is something in the artwork, something that's a little bit more accessible, something a little bit outside the ordinary. And a few of them are there, and a lot of them aren't. But here, I'm going to go through it. I'm going to give you the best overview that I can. Season 1, Part 2 of the 7 Deadly Sins, which is Funimation. Funimation does all the really, a lot of the really, really high-end stuff. They're kind of the top company right now for anime. And this is also a Netflix show. Netflix's logo is on this. It is available on Netflix, and that I find to be very interesting, that Netflix is investing in anime. That's,
well,
makes sense.
Netflix is investing.
Yeah.
They're investing. They're investing in everything that they're going to need to replace everything that belongs to somebody else that's on Netflix, because eventually just about everything that belongs to some other entity that's on Netflix is going to go away.
Yep.
So they need to replace it one for one. When animation, or when all the libraries start pulling back their animation so they can put it on their own services, Netflix they're going to need it.
Indeed,
there it is.
So, 7 Deadly Sins, primarily a kind of a fantasy / superhero narrative. The animation is way too Yu-Gi-Oh for me. Not my. It just is. It's got that feel. It's a little bit like. It just, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's a little too Yu-Gi-Oh. As most of them have, it's a little bit of a convoluted universe. The comedy doesn't really work for me. I'm sure if I were living in Tokyo, I'd find all kinds of in-jokes, and it doesn't really work. But it's okay. We have Season 2 of Dark Matter live action, which is really, really interesting. This is a Funimation release. This is one of the, every once in a while you get these live action releases from Funimation, and this is not a, Lost Girl is the show that sort of opened this up for them. This is not Japanese material. This is not a Japanese cast. This is, not a Japanese language thing. This is an English language show. And Lost Girl is kind of the trend for this. It's a really mixed ethnicity cast, very global, cool kind of. What was the Joss Whedon show? The space thing?
Was this Firefly or
Serenity?
Firefly? I think
Firefly.
the movie was Serenity.
The movie was Serenity.
Yeah.
So very Firefly-ish.
Yeah.
It's got a Firefly vibe to it. So if you want to say it feels like the Fast and Furious cast mixed with Firefly, that's what this is. It's Dark Matter. It's season 2. I think this is an okay show. I think it's all right. Moving along, we've also got the KanColle, KanColle. I'm sure I'm totally mutilating that. The Fleet Girls Collection Complete Series. This apparently, near as I could find out, this is a Blu-ray DVD combo set. Near as I could determine, this has quite a following. It is a game thing originally. This was originally a video game phenomenon, and they turned it into an anime series, and it's still very much mired in that schoolgirl thing. It feels a little bit. It feels a little bit like a mixture between. I shouldn't say Wonder Woman because that's just the first thing that's coming to my mind. It's not really Wonder Woman. It's more like a mix between Space Cruiser Yamato and something to do with Atlantis.
Nah.
It's a little bit peculiar, but well done. The animation's good. The schoolgirl fetish stuff is a little peculiar, how that just feeds into everything. But otherwise, I think there's something interesting here. The whole nautical aspect to it, the whole nautical environment's kind of cool. I love seeing. I always love anime ships. So this is something I'm inclined to give a little bit more attention to. Assassination Classroom, Season 2, Part 2. Weirdest anime show ever. It's just bizarre. Aliens and teaching class and schools. The humor is weird. The whole premise is bizarre. The whole idea of this like alien spider. I can't even. There's no way to even describe this. It's just utterly weird. It's like somebody took a massive amount of drugs and came up with a premise. And there it is. But I will say this, with all due deference to Assassination Classroom, it's a lot less weird after having seen episode 8 of Twin Peaks.
Oh, tell me about it,
dude.
We had a conversation about this.
We did, and I keep coming back to it. I stop strangers on the street. I'm walking down the street, and I suddenly have a flashback. I break out into a cold sweat. I grab this little old lady, and I just go, explain it to me.
but you and I had a conversation last week, though, where you clarified for me what I felt like I was experiencing.
It's a lot easier to understand than I think people realize.
But if you've been steeped in that Lynchian world for the last 25 years, 30 years, really, but more than 30 years, actually. Yeah. If you go back to your Eraserhood, that's like 70-something.
70, 77,
40,
77,
40
78,
years.
40 years, yeah.
And you're watching this new Twin Peaks. Yeah. And you have all of these references. It's a real different thing if you're not sitting there cold. David's mind
is a radiator that has not been flushed out in 40 years. And this new season of Twin Peaks is that little bucket that the mechanic just put right there under the radiator as he's flushing it out. And all that gunk comes out and fills that 40 years worth of crap from your radiator. Yeah. And that mechanic, like the rest of us, looks at that and goes, damn.
Like, man, that's what happens if you don't clean it out.
So, clean it out more often. So David's subconscious is just all over the place. But, episode, I loved it. I did love it.
No, I'm digging it all, too. But that little confirmation that you gave me that I am not making associations that are not there. Because everybody keeps telling me, no, you're making associations that aren't there. You're giving them too much credit. I'm like, I'm pretty sure, because I saw Lost Highway. Yeah. and
we saw Mulholland Drive.
And I'm thinking that there's a big connective tissue here.
All of it. Yep, absolutely all of it. It all even goes back. Every single bad guy in Twin Peaks, all of the villains in Twin Peaks, are all really spiritual descendants of Dennis Hopper
Of Dennis
and Blue
Hopper,
Velvet.
Blue Velvet, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's even some Dune referencing in there a little bit too. I was like, that's very Dune-like. So moving on, Dragon Ball Z Kai, the legendary Z Reborn. Look, if you like Dragon Ball Z, you're gonna love it. If you don't, you won't. I mean, all the Dragon Ball Z stuff is really very much the same. It doesn't take any risks. This is part 3, and it is. It's perfectly fine. The final chapters. It's not going to be the final chapters. It's Dragon Ball Z. Give me a break. It's like Power Rangers. They're going to keep pushing Dragon Ball Z until Dragon Ball Z, 2150.
Power Rangers, Transformers, they will not be ending.
All right. This is a bit of a trip. It's a Blu-ray DVD combo pack, as most of these are. Pandora in the Crimson Shell. Ghost Urn. Again, somebody just took way too many drugs to conceive of this thing. So this is kind of a spiritual kin to Ghost in the Shell, and it centers on 2 girls who are cuter cyborgs. We're moving into a more attractive, I guess they're better versions or whatever. And they are on a mission, and you throw in, other cybernetic technology and all kinds of really cool weaponry and just a lot of cool animation, and it's fine. I don't think this will ever be a live-action thing like Ghost in the Shell, but it's if you like Ghost in the Shell, it's got the same groove. It's kind of in the same general vicinity. Just don't like Yu-Gi-Oh! The Dark Side of Dimensions Blu-ray set here. This is from Anchor Bay, as seen on Stars. It's got a few interesting special features here, favorite moments with the cast, and a couple of Q&As, but I don't really, Yu-Gi-Oh!, if it's your thing, knock yourself out. Let's see here. We also have a Pokemon this week. And I'm going to finish this up really quickly if there are people at home thinking, oh, when is he going to finish? Yeah, I got just a few more. Got to go through some Sente stuff, and then we're done. Pokemon Complete Collection, Pokemon Advanced. Let me say, this is the complete season, 40 episodes of Pokemon Advanced, the complete collection. And it's Pokemon. There's just nothing different here. This is distributed by Warner Brothers, who is handling the Viz library. Viz is the formal rights holder. And it's fine. It doesn't really take any great risks. I had forgotten how kind of annoying Pokemon could be on occasion, but it was all right. It was all right. Let's see. Here's what we got left from Sente, School Live, Complete Collection. This is more schoolgirl fetishism, but pretty decent animation. Otherwise, not a whole lot to really recommend it. It's kind of it's same old, same old. Amazing animation. And this thing called Norn 9, complete collection from Sente, 12 episodes on 2 discs. Really, really beautiful animation, beautiful artwork, really interesting character conceptualization. It's sort of anime, but then it takes some detours at a certain point. It's a little like La Femme Nikita-ish in some respects, with except in a real big, heavy sci-fi space environment. But I could see Luc Besson wanting to remake that. Chivalry of a Failed Knight, complete collection. This is kind of cool stuff. I've seen a little bit of this over the years. This is a fantasy world where people can. I shouldn't say. I want to say it's a little Green Lantern-y. People can they can manufacture weapons just by thinking of them. There are certain. Like you're a race, and that's your gift, is to manufacture weapons just with the power of your mind. So there's that. So that's very, very cool. Got some interesting special features. Some of the clean animation sections from the opening and the ending, Japanese promos. It's not bad. Sound of the Sky is okay. It's a little bit tepid. I want to say this is it. If you're looking for animation, it's all cyberpunky and sci-fi-ish and so forth, and this isn't for you, but this is a little bit more down-to-earth kind of drama, and it feels still inspired by a lot of Japan's post-World War II cultural anxieties. But as far as more straightforward anime drama, it's not bad. Let's see, we got Galaxy Angel. I did not watch any of this, but I do want to make mention of it because it's big eyes and colored hair, and it's the schoolgirl fetish again, and it looks absolutely unhinged. RWBY we've talked about in the past. Absolutely love these girls; they're fantastic. This is the RWBY Volume 4. It's also a gun special edition. And these, I guess I'm still on a Wonder Woman kick, and this just feeds it. This is a great team of anime heroines, and they're awesome. And they're fighting a mystical battle, and I can't get enough. Big Windup. It's silly and it's baseball, and it's not good. But some people love this thing. This is from Nozomi. This is DVD, not Blu-ray. I can't get behind an anime baseball show. It's very, very strange. also on DVD, not Blu-ray, is the complete collection of Mez, Danger Service Agency. This is from ADV Films. ADV used to release their own stuff. They are now primarily rights holders, and they release through other companies. But Mez, MEZZ, Danger Service Agency. It's amazing how much of this stuff is female centric now, which is really going to play well in the Wonder Woman era. Yeah. But it's a woman who's an ex-cop, and she's now kind of a badass private eye secret agent type figure, and it's cool.
The shape of a lot of these things in anime, obviously in live action, is being fixed now. With respect to women and girls. Yeah. I think the other day, I even heard
this is changing, very Barbarella-esque, and Barbarella almost feels like you could do that now in the Wonder Woman era, right?
Oh, in a certain sort of way, I mean, I think I heard that they're changing one of the rides at Disneyland. It's the Pirates ride where there's...
Oh, yeah. The redhead. They're taking, the wenches for auction.
And they're flipping that around, and they're going to make one of the girls a pirate now and all that kind of stuff. And look, I've been looking at that thing for 45 years. It never occurred to me.
No.
But you know what? Go ahead and change it. I'm okay with that.
They've changed that ride so many times.
That's okay. Yeah, we can fix that. And I get it. If I got a little girl... I don't want my little baby girl riding by. Daddy, what's going on there? Well, they're auctioning off that winch.
I'll tell you. It's
what? Let's skip that conversation.
It's really interesting. As soon as after because I covered Wonder Woman on Film Week, and when we were just having the Wonder Woman conversation just in the house, I was mentioning something about Wonder Woman, and my daughter's ears just completely pick up Wonder Woman. Like the name.
Just the name.
And, it's something we automatically associate with. There's the association. But just those words, Wonder Woman, that meant something to her. Yeah. And that was fascinating to me.
Yeah. And those two words together, again, it meant something to me, different to me and you 40 years ago.
Yeah, sure did.
Than it means to her now, even though it's the same phrase.
Well, that brings us to... That brings us to the last three, which are all female-centric as well. And this one is maybe... what a transition here, Tim. This is the complete collection, 13 episodes on 2 discs of... Is it wrong to try to pick up girls in a dungeon? See, that's the name. That's actually the name.
You know what? Sometimes you get poked in the eye.
Anime titles. So this is incredibly fun and incredibly politically incorrect all at the same time. So knock yourselves out. Truly, it is. There's just I can't even describe this. It's female heroines, but they're dressed scantily, and there are monsters in the dungeon, and it's just it's unusual, but nicely drawn. The schoolgirl fetish takes on a much more palatable direction in Girls Beyond the Wasteland, which is really much better animated than most of these things. It's kind of meta, but in terms of female heroines, I think this one is maybe better written than most of them, at least from the little bit that I was able to watch. And then lastly, Girls Panzer der Film. This is the Girls Panzer. This is a Blu-ray DVD combo set. The whole Girls Panzer thing is done as a feature film here, and it's got a few extras, and but otherwise, it's it's still very much in that vein, which is it's it's wartime and it's female centric, and I can't quite girls and tanks. There you go.
Why not?
I don't know how else to describe it. Girls and tanks. All right. So there we go. So if any of that sounds like it's going to ring your bell, go for it. Have a good time. Tim, we jump into TV?
I guess we are.
Okay.
Because I just happened to pick up this DVD. The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson. I really do love these collections.
Yeah.
For one reason, I've been watching what locally would be the Decades channels, Channel 2.2. It's a subsidiary of CBS. On those digital channels that you have, right? So on those channels, and I assume that they're all over the nation, they run these the Dick Cavett Show, the Johnny Carson Show, all of these. They run them. And I got to tell you, they're absolutely captivating.
Yeah.
Real cultural archives. This particular one, so this is the Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, Johnny and Friends. This particular one is shaped around comedian appearances on the show.
I love the curation.
Oh, it's the curation that makes it really, really sort of interesting. It's not haphazard. They used to put these things out rather haphazardly, just grab them together and stick them on a thing. But now, no, you watch them and you go through and they make sense. This one has Steve Martin, Robin Williams, and Eddie Murphy.
Ooh.
If you had told me that Eddie Murphy, I'm reading the box now, 3 appearances over a span of 7 months in 1982. Eddie Murphy on the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
First of all, have to remember, 1982, a little bit of cable television around, not a whole lot. Mm-hmm. Johnny was pulling 30 million viewers a night, sometimes 35.
That's amazing.
Sometimes he would pull a 40 share.
Nobody could do that today.
That's insane.
No one could do that today.
Eddie Murphy was a big enough star that they tapped him to come on that show 3 times in 7 months. And if you think about what was happening with Eddie, a little Saturday Night Live, I think maybe the first...
48 Hours was the first feature film that really put him on the mark.
On the top.
Yeah.
And then you got Robin Williams here, the late Robin, 1984, 1991, and twice in 1991. And you have Steve Martin's 1976 episode of... First of all, I actually remember watching that appearance in 1976, actually watching it with my mother and my brother. So it's a time capsule in that way. This is what's best about all of that. As funny now as they were up to 40 years ago. You watch that stuff, those guys are sharp as tacks. Johnny is as easy and free-flowing with Eddie as he is with Robin, as he is with Steven. These are 3 very, very different sort of comedians with different sets of references. They're doing, Robin was way, he always was, but way back then. Steve Martin could get very erudite. He could get very erudite, and Johnny would be right there with him.
Steve Martin could be, even the stuff that he's written on his own is very New Yorker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then of course you had Eddie there, and Eddie would get very urbane. He was very urbane, but he was very smart. Johnny again, right there with him.
Yeah,
dude, we underestimate just what a super talented genius that guy was.
It's interesting too because we forget also that up until that moment, there were TV actors and there were movie actors. And if you were someone like Barbara Stanwyck, who had a movie career, or like Buddy Ebsen, who had a movie career, and you were getting a little long in the tooth, a little old, and still needed to pay your mortgage, well, then we'll put you on a TV show. Yeah. But nobody from a TV show becomes a movie star. That's just, you pick your world.
It was a big deal when Tom Selleck
became a movie
particularly
star.
after having, I guess not being chosen. I was going to say turning down that role in Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
But it was a big deal that he made it over into the movie star world.
It sure was. And the fact that Robin Williams and Eddie Murphy were able to become movie stars was a big deal. I mean, Eddie was the first one who really, Bill Murray, we could, from Saturday Night Live, we could sort of say he was the first to sort of do that. But Bill Murray did not become a standalone superstar. Eddie Murphy was the one. And then Robin Williams followed. And, when suddenly the kid from, Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood and Mork become movie stars, and in Robin Williams' case,
sustaining box office movie stars.
That
for real, no kidding around. Completely changed the scene.
Changed everything. So amazing. ABC did an original movie remake of Dirty Dancing, which was completely pointless. I just honestly don't understand why this even existed at all. Truly, just a strange choice. But in any case. Don't need to see it. It's Deborah Messing's in it, and Abigail Breslin and whatever. If you've seen Dirty Dancing, just stick with the original. There's no reason for this remake. But are you friends on Facebook with Christy Lemire?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you see her story about this?
No, I did not.
Oh, you may want to go and check this out. So I hope Christy doesn't mind that I divulge this. Christy had a weird kind of identity theft thing happening.
Interesting.
She got a letter returned to her that she did not write. Someone sent a weird rambling letter. Apparently, there's a character in here, who carries around a copy of the Fountainhead and right. Yeah. So somebody sent a long rambling letter to the Ayn Rand Society, and arguing that whole aspect of this ABC Dirty Dancing movie completely misrepresents the Fountainhead and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Signed it with Christie's name. And Christie's return address.
Ooh, now that's where it gets scary.
But sent it to the wrong place, sent it somewhere in Texas to the Ayn Rand Institute, which is actually out here in Orange County.
Yeah.
And it wound up being returned to sender, which is Christie.
Yeah.
That's weird.
And she wouldn't have known this.
She would have known this had they addressed it correctly. They would have thought that Christie sent them a letter, and they would have said, "Why is this film critic doing this,
attacking us?"
And it makes you wonder how many letters actually made it to their destination in Christie's name. Is it Is she being?
Well, someone's obviously pretending, because I had that situation for years.
At screenings
with Sam.
Sam's brother.
Sam's brother.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to get into it. Yeah. And getting away with it, particularly weird, since I'm a smallish black man and he was a smallish white man.
Yeah.
Both Jews, but for God's sakes, people. And for 25 years, plenty of people would sit there, and he would stand right in front of. These are people who knew me.
Who know you.
And he would stand right in front of them and say, "I'm Tim Cogshell," and they'd look right at him and give him my ticket and let him walk into that door. And I would walk up, and they'd be like, "Oh, Tim. Oh." I'd be like, seriously?
I just do not know how that happened. Anyway,
that was madness. I'm sorry. Merlin. I remember enjoying this Merlin. I didn't see this particular, but I enjoyed this Merlin with Sam Neill, Helena Bonham Carter, John Gielgud, Rutger Hauer. I mean, just James Earl Jones, just the whole Miranda Richardson, Isabella Rossellini, Martin Short, just this whole, really a fantastic cast for Merlin. I remember this as a television thing. It's about 1998 or so. That this was on, and it was really, really good. I remember just being totally captivated by it. So I'm going to recommend it just on having seen it 20 years ago. Sam Neill, exactly. Particularly, youngish Sam
just
Neill.
Can't go wrong with Sam Neill.
So Merlin, on the DVD, not a whole lot. It would have been neat if they would have put some interviews or something like that on it. Not much on it.
Power Rangers. I know there's a wiki page where they tell you all the Power Rangers shows and what Japanese shows or what, and I can't immerse myself in this world anymore. So the Power Rangers movie apparently did well enough that we're probably going to get more of them. We did not get a copy of that to review. Demand was ridiculously high, it seems, so we didn't make the cut. But we do have Power Rangers Dino Supercharged, the complete season. Most of these Power Rangers shows now do not come with the complete show. They come with the complete season because they only run for a season.
Yeah.
And this is another one. And now we've got to reinvent the costumes and do a whole different thing. The Dino Charge deal, I still can't quite wrap myself around. I can only imagine that it is somewhat Transformers inspired. This whole kind of cyber dinosaur thing. That's all I can imagine, that's got some connection there. But in any case, it's, pretty much the whole thing. This time they're protecting the Energems, and they have to battle Heckle, who's the bad guy in this. I don't,
I got the Vampire Diaries over here, final season, 8th and final season of the Vampire Diaries. I got to tell you, I never did watch this show.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not true. Actually, I did watch the show. I watched it 2 or 3 times, and this show sort of takes the main beat down of the sort of
the pretty vampire.
It's just, I'm like,
the CW deal.
It's just right there. It's just in your face with it.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, they embrace it.
It's the prototypical CW show.
Yeah, and there it
yeah.
is. A couple of vampire brothers and all the sort of machinations of that. But I suppose if you've been watching, anyway, this is the final episode, the final season that leads you up to the final episode. It does contain a few special features, including Last Days as a vampire and the 2016 Comic-Con panel for a whole bunch of the cast members. So fun for fans, right?
Yep. So the Borgias, everybody knows the story of the Borgias was the inspiration for The Godfather, and yes, there's a reason why we played the Godfather theme at the top of the show. Yes. We will be getting to that momentarily. I wanted to hit the Borgias first. The complete series of the Borgias, the inspiration for The Godfather, the original crime family. This is an okay series. It should have been better. This is a Showtime series. It's a little bit too trashy for my taste, which I know sounds weird because the Borgias were horrible.
Yeah. And this is Neil Jordan, and you're right about the trashy. But that's what surprises me about the trashy. It's Neil Jordan.
Yeah.
And I would have thought it's kind of soap opera.
And that's the thing. I would have preferred something that hewed a little bit closer to history, because history is bad enough. The actual history of the Borgias is, some of the most corrupt popes and magistrates. I mean, they ran Italy at the time. It was an amazing family, and in a really bad way. Great cast, by the way. Jeremy Irons plays Rodrigo Borgia and does it quite beautifully. He chews the scenery like nobody's business. But I would have preferred something a little bit more literate and solid. But anyway, you do get some interviews and behind the scenes stuff here, and unfortunately they include some bloopers, which I wish they hadn't have done. But otherwise, the Borgias, the complete series from Showtime and CBS on DVD for those who really enjoyed it.
The Wild Wild West revisited, and more Wild Wild West. First of all,
I love the show, but
I
these
the
two
original Wild Wild West. But when they started to get a little long in the tooth,
they did the comeback movies, which I was excited for at the time. I admit,
the first one I was.
Yeah, when they did more Wild Wild West, that was not so good.
Now anyway, we're definitely long in the tooth.
This is again from Paramount and CBS. Everybody's always looking for the comeback. Gilligan's Island. We want to get them off the island. And then that became Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, we got them off the island. Isn't that the end of it?
Yeah.
Now the island has to be turned into some kind of a commercial basketball retreat. What? Where did that come from?
Stuck there again.
But
their agent knows where they are.
No, that's not right. That's not right. Don't do that. And so the Wild Wild West revisited was okay. It was fine, but then they did more Wild Wild West completely needlessly because they don't know where to go, and it went all bad. The one thing that they will not tell you here is, Paul, because by the time this came around, the actor who played Miguelito Loveless had passed.
Yeah.
So, part of what made this show so appealing was it was like Batman, the recurring villains.
Yeah.
Count Manzeppi and so what do you do?
Miguelito Loveless was the small person.
Yes, an amazing actor who was also on Star Trek, by the way, in the episode Plato's Stepchildren. He's the one they push around with their minds. But he had passed on, and so they thought, well, let's have Miguelito Loveless Jr., and let's have him played by everyone's man of the hour in the late 70s and early 80s, none other than actor, songwriter, and frequent guest on every show that would have guests from talk shows. Paul Williams.
Yeah, he's a wonderful songwriter.
He's a wonderful songwriter. Yeah,
but he should have stayed. Look, from Love Boat,
Fantasy Island.
He
must have been on like a dozen episodes apiece.
Wonderful documentary about him that he is in 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Remember the one I'm talking about?
It was good. It was really
good.
Film. Yeah.
You finished with that one?
No, carry on. Do that.
I wanted to, Prison Break. This is interesting. A buddy of mine was in this series when it was on before. This is the Prison Break event movie. So if you were a fan of Prison Break, you know that they killed Wentworth Miller's character, the brother, played by him, at the end of the original run.
Yep.
So they decide they want to do it again. What they do is they JR'd him. They Bobby Ewan'd him. they pulled Bobby Ewan.
No.
Anyway, apparently he was. We saw him dead, buried. No, he's alive in Yemen. Of course, his brother has to go find him in Yemen.
Boy.
Why did they pick Yemen? That's what was. And in any case, though, for fans of the series, and it was a bit of a fun series. I kind of like Dominic Purcell and Wentworth Miller sort of running around the series. It was pretty neat for a while. This is not shot anywhere near Yemen. I'm pretty sure they're out in Pacoima someplace.
Pacoima for Yemen.
But that's fun. Other than that, Prison Break. Special feature, A Return Home, the making of Prison Break, the event series.
I will say, Dominic Purcell and Wentworth Miller, I was never a huge fan of Prison Break. I know a lot of people who were, but I absolutely love the two of them on The Flash.
Oh yeah.
That is great, and of course, also Wentworth Miller on Legends of Tomorrow. Yeah, but when they showed up together on The Flash, that was just a lot of fun.
A bit of inspired cast.
That was a lot of fun. We've also got this is a big deal. Complete series of Homicide, Life on the Street. This show just will not go away, and this is such an influential show, and it never got its sea legs. The thing that was so frustrating about Homicide, this is one of those shows, and there are a few of these that sort of get caught never really finding their network slot. Homicide was on one night, and then it was on another night, and then it went off, and then they tried to reconfigure the show because it wasn't finding an audience, and it went off the air for a year, and then it came back, and it was on another night, and it has this very kind of staggered history where, it wasn't like, okay, for 12 years, Bonanza ran on NBC, and it was every Sunday night at 8, and you knew where to find it. Nobody could ever find Homicide. Yeah. They just couldn't. They didn't. It was on. It was off. It was here. It was there. And now you can find it. You can find it in this big old beautiful boxed set, which includes all 7 seasons and a bonus disc. And it's still a great show. Andre Braugher was so young in this show. It kills me. Yeah. But what a great show. Belzer before he was on Law and Order. Yaphet Kotto. Yeah. The man. I just, across 110th Street, baby. Bobby Womack sounds. These guys are just they're tough. They're gritty. It's Baltimore, which is one of the less represented cities in America.
That show was cast. And by that I mean, not just the diversity of the actors, but the sort of faces, the actual human beings, and the way that shows of the Naked City. Remember Naked City, the 50s? Yep. Oh, yeah. All of that sort of New York casting, that sort of I call it Elia Kazan casting.
Yeah, that's it. That is yes, it's Elia Kazan for faces.
Yeah, faces, faces. And dialects and accents, kind of thing.
Isn't it funny? I think when all is said and done, I could be wrong. Rain Man is an Oscar winner, but I have a feeling that Barry Levinson may wind up going down known more for this show than anything he did in film.
The Diner, or 10 Men,
or any of that. Yeah. So anyway, Barry Levinson and all of the other creators and showrunners on the show, they're all interviewed. There are commentaries here. There's a feature-length commentary for Anatomy of a Homicide. There's even a panel discussion with everybody. I mean, and a lot of really intense discussion about what made this such a great show. And, this show won 3 Peabody Awards back when television shows won Peabody Awards. Yeah. Shows don't win Peabody Awards anymore for some strange reason. We never hear about that. That used to be a thing. Like Lou Grant won Peabodys and China Beach won a Peabody, and that was a big deal. And that's kind of a long-lost thing now, and nobody really kind of understands what that means anymore.
Because the Peabody, obviously there've always been Emmys. Yeah. But the Peabody was this more prestigious thing, more akin to...
It was like a Pulitzer for television.
Yeah, like a Pulitzer, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, it was a big deal. It sort of, it meant you just made something that was serious and relevant to the world. Yeah. It's not just, good drama. It's
good
beyond
drama,
that.
Or even sort of...
it has social relevance.
That kind of thing. Yeah. The Strain was a series that I watched a little bit because my buddy was on that too. This is the complete 3rd season of The Strain. The thing that I found interesting about it's just a vampire series. That's all it really is. They complicate it.
And it's also known, Mark and I talked about this on the show before, it's also famous for being the show that had a promotional billboard that was so shocking and horrifying that it came down after 2 days.
Which one was it?
It was that one that was on La Cienega or Fairfax, just off of the 10,
Mm-hmm.
one of those major thoroughfares. And it was, the worm in the eye.
Oh, yeah.
It was that thing. And it was right there where literally 150, 200,000 people pass it every day and just saw that thing. And it was horrifying. And it was so horrifying and shocking. People complained, and they took the billboard down.
That's funny. This one what's most interesting about this series is that it's Guillermo del Toro.
Yep.
as a crew, which I don't think most people paid any attention to it.
No.
Maybe if you watched it, you might have paid attention
Yeah.
to it. But if you watched the series, you could tell it's Guillermo del Toro. It has
Sure.
a very sort of particular sensibility. Anyway, this is the third season. Third complete season. Extras include 45 minutes of all kinds of not previously seen stuff in the television series. So
Fantabulous.
check it out.
All right. Let me hit a few foreign. We got Bunnicula. One more for television. Bunnicula, Night of the Vegetable. 20 episodes of vampire, as long as we're talking about vampires, of the vampire bunny Bunnicula, which is part of the whole new Warner Brothers animated world. It's very unusual. He's it's he doesn't crave blood.
That sort of those sort of like baby or child.
It's like Animaniacs and Tiny Toons. It's the next generation of all that nonsense. I don't really like it, but a lot of kids do. And he's a like a vampire bunny, but he doesn't crave blood. He craves vegetable juice, and it's it all takes place in New Orleans, and there's a little girl and a dog, and it's I don't know. It has a following. It's not as cute as I think people pretend that it is, but it's 2 discs and a whole.
If you wondered where Chris Kattan went,
that's right. Whole 20 episode season on this thing. It's okay. It's not going to be shown to any children in my house, so I'll put it that way. Let me hit some foreign stuff here. And actually, let's finish paying off the Godfather thing at the beginning first, Tim.
Okay.
Let's talk about the book.
The big book.
Because we do occasionally review books here. And there is a book that has been out for a few weeks now.
It's a big, lovely hardcover. I suppose you call it a coffee table book.
It is a coffee table book. It is. It's a hardcover coffee table book.
The Godfather Notebook is what it's called.
Godfather Notebook. Does not come with a jacket. It's not that kind of a coffee table book. But this is Godfather Notebook by Francis Coppola. It has been on the New York Times bestseller list for a little while now, and we were finally able to get a copy of it to talk about and to go through. And this is pretty amazing. This is and again, I've mentioned this before. I was supposed to write. Boo-hoo! Here I am name dropping and whining again. I was supposed to write the book on the Godfather restoration.
Yeah. Which was a big deal.
Which was a big deal. I sat in on some of those restoration sessions with Robert Harris and Alan Daviau, talking by phone with Gordon Willis and the amazing restoration artists who sit there and they just meticulously look at every frame and digitally tweak with it. It's an amazing thing to watch. It's such tedious work. But Paramount it's just too convoluted of a place to actually push anything through the bureaucracy, so it just didn't happen. In any case, I still have a great affection for the films, obviously, and for the process of how the movie got made. We all know the stories, or hopefully you know the stories about how Robert Evans really, really threw his weight around as studio chief to make it happen, to get behind Coppola, to push back against some of the ideas that were coming down the pike. I mean, it's an amazing story how this movie happened.
Things to do with Brando's casting.
Oh
things
my
to
gosh!
Do with well, first of all, I mean, things to do with making the movie in the first place. The sort of pulp novel, Puzo's novel.
It's not a good novel.
It's not. No, it's pulp.
It's terrible.
But that's the thing.
He made a silk purse out of a sow's ear in every conceivable way that analogy works. So this is Coppola taking you through that process, taking you through the making of it, but with photographs and with actual photocopied annotation of the screenplay and the book. And it's, most of this is basically, it's like when you have classes in college, very often your textbooks, it's a bit of a scam. Everybody knows this. You'll pay like $40, $50, or maybe probably like $100 now for a textbook, which is basically just a binder that contains a bunch of stuff that your professor photocopied, like articles and clippets of other books, and nobody's getting any royalty payments out of the copyright violations in those things. Colleges do this with impunity. This is basically that, except it's legit.
Yeah,
and
it's the actual stuff.
It's the
You're
actual
looking at
stuff.
Handwriting.
You're looking at markings in the margins and on the pages, and so he's not walking you through it. This is like a scrapbook. And you find the most amazing stuff in here, like notations where he underlines something and like, this will make a good scene. And it is a great scene, but it's a throwaway thing. You get inside Coppola's mind and his process, and you find out how things in the book that are sort of, that Puzo puts a spotlight on and really, really amps up, Coppola just ignores completely. And then there'll be a little detail, something that's really, kind of a throwaway thing, but Coppola sees a cinematic opportunity in it, and it's this microscope lens going in and out and in and out, and it's the emergence of a filmmaker's vision. It's really an incredible book. It's just so much fun to go through. I could just sit here and just read any given page just at random. It's just really amazing.
The thing about The Godfather, well, the first two films anyway.
Yeah.
That I've always felt. All right, so the Godfather films, everybody understands that these are sort of iconic films, and there are plenty of people. I mean, their course is taught. And that book is for that kind of an audience of the Godfather films. So you really can't be a completist about the Godfather films if you don't have the book. But I think for me, Godfather films have always been among the movies that I actually appreciate more than I actually liked.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I sit there, I watch these films for Gordon Willis, the Prince of Darkness, and what's going on there visually. I get all of that. The sort of Italian, the sort of quasi pulpy Italian story. I can still see that Puzo.
Yeah.
I can see it.
More so in the first film than the second.
And in the second, the second film isn't really Puzo at all.
The second film is pure Coppola, and it's better. I think it's a better movie as a result.
It's actually a far and away better movie.
Well, one of my professors pointed out very early when I had a comedy class with the great Howard Suber, who has done many commentary. He was like the original commentary for Criterion for like a dozen movies. Suber was the guy who, in our comedy class in film school, said, "Godfather 1 is a comedy. Godfather 2 is a tragedy." And everybody's like, "Oh, what?" And he said, "No, pure Greek definition. It's all about where it takes you. Comedy doesn't mean ha-ha. Comedy means it usually ends on a wedding or a celebration or whatever. That's what comedy truly means. It's in
the
broadest sense. Tragedy ends with death and destruction and so forth. And then you go, Godfather 1 is a comedy. Godfather 2 is a tragedy. And you get it. And you realize that that's why those two films work so beautifully together. Yeah. It takes you the full gamut of the Greek range, so it's tremendous.
And then there's the third one.
So let me hit a few foreign things, and then I'll let Tim jump into some of the new stuff. So a few interesting foreign films here. Un Padre No Tan Padre means from the English language title here was From Dad to Worse, which isn't what that means, but it's Un Padre No Tan Padre is a really pretty great Mexican movie. It's very, very funny, from Raul Martinez is the director. And the idea here is there's this old Mexican guy. He's like 85 years old. He's this angry old patrician guy who's accustomed to having everything he wants in life, and he's in a rest home, and he's insufferable. And for all kinds of unfortunate reasons, his money has run out. He can no longer stay in the rest home, where he regularly beats and abuses the staff. And now he has to move in with a son. And the son reluctantly is going to take care of him. And his son is a full-on kind of like a hippie guy living in a commune with like this gay couple, and there's this priest who occasionally comes in who's a Jesuit, which is everything he hates, and it's just this full freewheeling just commune life. And it's everything he hates, and it's kind of a fish out of water thing.
He hates the Jesuit.
He hates the Jesuit. It's the worst thing. When he asks him, like, what order are you? And the guy goes, Jesuit. And the look on his face is just pure hatred and anger. So there's a lot of Mexican culture in this thing that you probably won't get if you're not steeped in it or don't know someone who comes from it. But it is a very smart comedy, and Martinez is a very, very good director. And the lead performance by Hector Bonilla is just to die for. And of course, it's like any other mismatched buddy movie. Everybody kind of, you have two people from opposite sides who clash. It's the odd couple, right? Everyone learns something from each other, and everyone softens up a little bit. Suntan is a Greek film from Strand, which I quite like a lot. I don't like where it eventually goes. I think it kind of cops out at the end a little bit. I think it paints itself into a corner and doesn't really know what to do. But until then, it's a really, really, really sharp kind of psychological thriller, very sort of Hitchcockian in the way that it gets inside this guy's mindset. This is also a very NC-17 rated film. So Suntan takes place on a Greek island, and it centers on this schlubby guy, this sort of introverted, schlubby, pale, pasty, balding, middle-aged guy who's socially very awkward, but he's a very good doctor, and he's been hired to be a doctor on this island. And this island is just infested with tourists in the summer months. And so the island needs that economy. You know, everybody's got to be on their best behavior. Well, schlubby guy, like all schlubby guys in movies, is not well adjusted. He's got all kinds of sort of sexual issues. And there are these freewheeling tourists who show up. I think they're German. And they are just awesome. They're naked all the time. They're just having sex all the time. Their clothes are almost never on. They don't care. They're
on
just
vacation, man.
They are hedonists, and they will kiss anyone or anything. They're just having life is their oyster. And of course, Kostis, the schlubby doctor, he just develops an obsession for this one woman. And and starts kind of hanging out with them and trying to be in with the cool crowd, and you just know this isn't going to end well. Yeah. You're like, oh my, no, this is not going to a good place. He is not going to hit the gym and become cut and become one of them. This is not where this movie goes. I've seen this story before. It's a bad thing, and there's so much tension until it gets to that place, because you're asking yourself, he's not going to kill her, is he? He's not going to. And you're running through your mind all of the ugly things that he could possibly do when he snaps, because he's going to snap.
Yeah.
He's, like I said, he's not going to become a bronze god, and the movie's going to happily end. So the tension of getting there is really great. It's beautifully shot, very, very well directed by. I'm going to mutilate the name. Well directed by Argyris Papa Dimitropoulos. Argyris Papadimitriopoulos, who also co-wrote it. My goodness. Greek names and Thai names, they always tangle me up.
Oh, so many consonants.
Oh. And then Doberman Cop is, a Kinji Fukasaku movie. Kinji Fukasaku is the Japanese director who redefined Yakuza films, Battle Royale. We've talked about a few of his. This is an Arrow release. And it's not my favorite Fukasaku film. It's a little bit jumping the shark for him. It's based on a famous manga, and it feels, it just feels like it's a little bit too much. It's a little bit overboard. It's like when Peckinpah made, and I can't remember.
Straw Dogs?
Straw Dogs, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's when Peckinpah did Straw Dogs. You kind of feel like, okay, now he's just trying to compare himself against himself. But in any case, it's a beautiful Blu-ray, also has a DVD on it. Tons and tons of extras, as Arrow is increasingly doing, including an appreciation by Fukasaku's biographer. And Sonny Chiba shows up in a brand new interview as well. And we love Sonny Chiba. It's not his best film either, but and then two more with in the foreign end. The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, also not one of my favorite films because I'm not a Dario Argento fan. This is also an Arrow release, DVD and Blu-ray. But a lot of people, if you love your Dario Argento, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage is likely to be one of your top three.
What I like about Dario Argento is that he gave me Asia Argento. Other than that, thanks anyway,
that's a lot of people do agree with that. This is mercifully short. It's just a little over 90 minutes, but lots of extras here as well. It's a 4K restoration. There is an audio commentary by Troy Howarth, who is an expert on giallo films, and kind of tries to give you a context here that makes the film at least aspire to be a little bit better. But otherwise, it is really a wealth of extras of a Criterion level. But as far as Dario Argento movies go, it is one of his most stylish films, but it is. I don't particularly like it. The one thing I do like about it is Morricone's score, which is beautiful, and I often listen to it independent of the movie, and that's how I like it. And then lastly, we're going to talk about Monster Hunt. They're being really shameless about this. From the animator of Shrek and Madagascar. No. Don't expect Shrek or Madagascar. So one of the co-directors of Shrek and Madagascar went to China on a for hire gig and oversaw this very weird animated live action hybrid, which is a period Chinese film, kind of a wuxia martial arts film set in a fantasy reality where there are all these weird forest creatures and monsters, quote unquote. There's like the whole thing is that there's this monster there's a monster heir to the throne of the monsters that they have to protect, and it becomes kind of this pseudo ET thing, hide the monster. Bottom line, this movie is the dumbest thing you've ever seen. The monsters are ridiculous. It's terrible animation. The plot makes no sense. The martial arts and the action stuff is just not good. The slapstick is embarrassing. It is everything that's bad about Chinese popular comedy is packed into this horrible, stupid movie, and it's on DVD only. And here's the thing: there was recently a story. The news actually broke back in 2015, but there was recently a story talking about why there's so much corruption in the Chinese box office reporting, and how Hollywood studios are finally getting the chance to audit these companies and crack down on them and see exactly where the money is and isn't. And one of the big revelations was that Monster Hunt, get this, the only reason that Monster Hunt beat, Fast and the Furious 7 or whatever it was up against a couple of years ago, the only reason Monster Hunt opened bigger than the Fast and the Furious film in China is because the producers of Monster Hunt gave away 40 million free tickets. How do you give away 40 million? Two questions. How do you give away 40 million free tickets?
First of all, you have to be in China, where there's a population of over a billion people. But that's... You got to be there.
I guess you just airdrop that over one city, and you're. But secondly, how do you think you're going to keep that secret?
Yeah.
Really? I mean, truly. 40 million people. We swear you all do it. No, I'm sorry. That's going to come out. That was dumb. So anyway, the Monster Hunt is not just a bad movie; it is the poster child for Hollywood, for movie corruption in China.
And it says something about something else too. It says something about Hollywood's obsession with that market in China, and the way Hollywood movies are constantly being shaped for that market in China. When some obvious giant chunk of that market in China is fake.
Yep.
Or at least manipulated in some ways. Yeah.
And then lastly, French language film, On the Way to School, which is about 4 different kids, all in different parts of the world, Morocco and Kenya and India, and they're all in different parts of the script, but they all share a common dream. And this, in a kind of Babel type way, the movie Babel, in other words, bonds them together and brings them together on this quest for education, this quest to be bound by knowledge and education. And this is a really beautiful film. This is from Icarus Home Video and Distrib Films, who distributed it theatrically. It is also mercifully short, 77 minutes, and this will deeply, deeply touch you. On the Way to School by Pascal Plisson. Really a beautiful. It'll make you appreciate education in a whole new way that we don't when we live in first world countries.
Yeah. Oh wow.
New movies.
A couple of new things here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, The Zookeeper's Wife. All right. So Jessica Chastain and Daniel Bruhl in The Zookeeper's Wife, which of course was based on a true story that has these sort of similarities, I suppose, to Schindler's List, and these people. World War II set story.
Yeah.
Spend their time saving both the animals at the zoo and other, humans.
Yep.
And again, based on a true story. I have to tell you, I saw this movie. I might have saw it for the radio show.
Yeah.
And it just did not move me. And I know that it was intended to be a deeply sort of moving in that way, in that sort of Schindler's List. The child in the striped pajamas, that sort of a thing.
Yeah. But a lot of those, in the wake of Schindler's List, a lot of those have become very cloying.
Yes,
right?
Exactly the right word here. Yeah. In any case, bonus features, deleted scenes, the making of The Zookeeper's Wife, and a little biography of the family, which is central to the story. So it's a powerful and penetrating, sort of loosely based on a true story kind of thing, and I appreciate that. But it just did not captivate me the way I know that it was intended to. And I'm going to pop over to this one real quick, just because it's directed by Terry Jones, Monty Python's Terry Jones. So it's absolutely anything. DVD and digital HD. Simon Pegg, Kate Beckinsale, and Robin Williams, our late Robin Williams, as the voice of Dennis the dog, in a film about these aliens that imbue Simon Pegg with the ability to do absolutely anything.
Yeah.
You'd think that would be funnier than it actually is.
It sounds really funny, but
it's okay. But you think it would just be an absolutely hysterical film.
I think Simon Pegg is stretching himself a little too thinly these days, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
so that's that one.
And then we already talked a little bit about Jeremy Irons in the Borgias. We also have Jeremy Irons in a new movie with the lovely actress Olga Kurilenko. It's called Correspondence.
She was in Hitman. She was a pretty girl in Hitman. Yeah.
It's called Correspondence. I am deeply disappointed that this is only out on DVD and that this did not really have a theatrical release, because it is directed by Giuseppe Tornatore, who is most famous for Cinema Paradiso, and who has never really gotten back to the level of Cinema Paradiso. He's made a few really interesting films since. A couple of them got theatrical distribution here, but it's like he peaked with that movie and has never been able to get back to that pinnacle here. But this is a really interesting movie. It's a small movie. It's a very quaint movie, but it's one of the best bits of acting that Jeremy Irons has done in a long time. And you realize how much he chews the scenery in the Borgias when you watch him here, and where he plays, an astrophysics professor who, is finding himself in late life. And you would think, wow, you're a professor of astrophysics, but that's not his life's passion. She is his life's passion, and
they are separated.
There's a lot going on here, emotionally and psychologically, and it deals with how love changes when you introduce the distance, and how love persists over distance, but how it's also damaged by distance, and what technology, modern technology, texts, and all the rest of that can do. It's really. It's really poetic, and it's very impressionistic in many respects. And I'm so happy that Tornatore is still making movies, and I wish that people could discover this film theatrically, for the way that they used to be able to discover his films theatrically. But it is not meant to be.
Well, there used to be a distribution apparatus here in the United States that sort of presented them. Not that there isn't, but it's all and things slip through the cracks.
True.
The Belko experiment. It was a brutal. Another battle royale. X number of Americans in this office building down in Bogota, and a voice, this sort of disembodied voice instruct. Anyway, at the end of the day, they have to. It's a kill or be killed sort of situation.
It's 10 little Indians, and then there were none. It's all of that stuff. It
attempts to be funny, but you know what? Sometimes those things.
It's a Das Experiment is what it's like. Let's lock a bunch of people up and play with their minds and say, okay, only those who do this will get out alive. So murder your friends. It's one of those movies, but the premise is ridiculous. And by the time it gets to the end, you're just rolling your eyes and just saying, I'm sorry, this is just insane. Now the thing is, I get where this was supposed to go. It's written by James Gunn. I love James Gunn. James Gunn, of course, directs the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. But this is clearly something that he wrote kind of for low-budget consumption, not when he was in Guardians of the Galaxy mode.
Yeah, you probably some time ago. Anyway, a few special features, Blu-ray special features, behind-the-scenes featurette, some deleted scenes, a business like that. So stuff to see. But you got to be into that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I am not particularly into that kind of thing. Got one called Money. This is actually better than I thought. It's a thriller. Jamie Bamber, Kellen Lutz, who they've been trying to make into a movie star for maybe years now, for a while now, anyway, Jess Wexler. This is his best film, which is ironic, considering it's his least known film. Anyway, it's about these guys, a couple of rich guys, who've pulled off the scam. They're going to get away with it, make about $5 million until this outside person comes into the situation and sort of just sort of takes it all apart. It's kind of neat, actually, the way it all works in this movie, and I rather enjoyed it. The only thing on the DVD as a special feature is a behind the scenes, but good performances. And it's the kind of thing you probably definitely want to watch on DVD. Pop it in. That's where you want to enjoy that movie
for sure. And then 3 more new movies before we get into some classic stuff. And then we might be able to tap a couple of documentaries before we run out of time. Doing a little extra long show today because we're going to be off for a few weeks. London Heist. I always love the taglines on these, Tim. The taglines kill me. Read the tagline.
It's not revenge. It's justice.
Oh, that makes me tingle. It just makes me tingle. Who comes up with this stuff?
Because it seems like...
Anyway. It's not revenge if you're, motivated by justice. Whatever. So, Craig Fairbrass. There's a name that for an action star, right? Craig Fairbrass. His name's
Rock
not.
Hudson.
Yeah, he was probably born, Craig Schnitzeldoobie. So Craig Fairbrass, James Cosmo, and Nick Moran, all tough guys. So the idea here is that a bunch of guys robbed this place in London where it's kind of like where money is held. It's a when you for like payroll and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyway. In the process, there's some double cross and somebody gets killed, and then it turns out that there's all this conspiratorial crap going on. Anyway, it's not a very good script. Doesn't really make any sense, but it's got a lot of action and it's got that tough, hard-boiled British thing going on. So it'll appeal to somebody. This is hilarious. Feed the Light is a Blu-ray from Intervision. Now, this is where I always thoroughly enjoy this. This was made a few years ago in 2014, but this is its debut on Blu-ray. It is very weird, and we talked about Twin Peaks. It has a certain David Lynchian quality to it, in the whole style and the look of the whole thing. Henrik Muller is the director, who has that certain German expressionist instinct extended into him. It is the idea is there's a girl who is there's a couple who split up, and the father abducts the daughter, and mom goes looking for the daughter, and where she goes is the destination of her journey in kind of George C. Scott hardcore type fashion. Is where this movie gets really, really trippy and weird. And I don't want to give it away. It goes to a very, very dark and surreal place. What I love about this is Feed the Light says based on a story by H.P. Lovecraft. I know people who I have not read the story. I know people who have read the Lovecraft story, and they say this is based on a story by Lovecraft in much the same way that like any movie is. I mean. There's almost no analogy. It's like, in the sense that the story by Lovecraft has people and this movie has people. That's how much it's based on it. So I don't know. I can't speak to that. But the Lovecraft fans I know find that to be really, really insulting. They think they just see no Lovecraft in this. Anyway, a lot of Lynch in this, but less Lovecraft. So that said, there it is. And then lastly, real quickly, a cute little comedy called Amar, Akbar, and Tony by a director named Atul Malhotra. This is one of those low-budget films that has a lot of decent actors in it, but nobody you've ever heard of, and it's almost like one of those bar jokes. So a Sikh, a Muslim, and a Catholic walk into a bar. No, it really is. That's exactly what it's about. It's about a Sikh, a Muslim, and a Catholic, and it's allegedly based loosely on an old Bollywood film, which I have not seen, so I can't speak to that. But it's all set in London, and it has a certain brisk sensibility to it that is really, really charming. So even though there are no stars in this thing that you would necessarily recognize, I think you'll probably have a lot of fun with it. It's definitely worth a rental at the very, very least.
For some reason, we mentioned Peck and Paw's Straw Dogs.
Yeah, that's why I was having a brain freeze.
Okay, yeah,
that's why I was having a brain freeze.
Anyway, Criterion.
Because I was going to make the connection.
Oh, okay.
And in that moment, I was like, "What?" And my brain just skipped a beat.
Because it pops the Criterion release.
This week.
Peck and Paw, Dustin Hoffman. This movie remade, it seems to me, by our friend Rod Lurie.
Was it Rod? No, I thought it was Neil LaBute. Didn't Neil? Was it Neil?
No,
or Rod?
Rod, definitely Rod.
Did Rod do it?
Definitely
okay.
Rod Lurie. That popped into my head because I did the junket for that movie, and I
okay.
But in any case, Peck and Paw, and the classic film, Peck and Paw film, Dustin Hoffman. Susan George.
But it's Peck and Paw going to excess.
Yes.
Right? It's...
and commentated at the time. There was the commentary on the film was the excess of the violence with Peck and Paw, which is kind of strange anyway, given that it was Peck and Paw, and he was already known for being violent.
It was, I think the hit on it, and it's still a little bit of a hit. I mean, it's mild by present standards, but I think the hit on it was that compared to something like The Wild Bunch, where the violence is organic, and story-driven. Here, he just now has a reputation as a guy who shocks us with violence, so he's just going to shock us with violence even more. And he was sort of trying to push buttons for... Like, Haneke has gone the opposite direction. Haneke started as a guy who just was known for shocking people with excess, and then he realized, oh, I don't have to do that. I can tell a story. And now he tells us stories, and he's not sort of being this...
And the shocking bits are hardly ever anything sort of visual.
No.
It's sort of like the idea in the story is shocking more than anything. Else. It's a critique. So all kinds of special features on this. So but it's Peckinpah.
Yeah.
Blu-ray.
All right, we're going to dip into some classic stuff now. Let's see what we should get into. I'm going to start with a Flickr Alley release. This is a Blu-ray from Flickr Alley. It is a manufacturer-on-demand title from 1926, A Page of Madness. From Japanese director, I'm going to do my very, very best to not destroy his name like I always do. Tenosuke Kinugasa. Tenosuke Kinugasa, Kinugasa. And the film's original title is Kuruta Ichipeji, which simply means A Page of Madness. And, this is one of the early avant-garde Japanese silent films. People have to remember, Japan was making feature films in studios long before Hollywood was. Japan was making silent feature films and really daring kinds of films, or films that would qualify as features, in like 1902, 1903. And their studios, Shokiku and Tohei, were founded in the late 19th century. So Japan was on board very, very early. They just didn't hit the international scene like the Germans, the French, and the Italians, and the Americans did. So, and the Russians. Those were the films that really got an international appeal. But Japan had a thriving independent and studio silent film industry very early on. This puts you right back into it. And this is a really, really fascinating movie visually, because it almost goes alongside with Man with the Camera, the Dziga Vertov film, the Russian film, in terms of just being very experimental. And I find it really, really an interesting thing. It has a story. It's not completely avant-garde. But when you have, it's a little bit like Caligari, right? The idea of a sailor who's working at a mental hospital is like, oh, great, now it's a mental hospital, and that's always your opening to kind of go nuts. And then you can sort of go inside the mind and everything that's sort of tearing somebody apart mentally. But all of that stuff is great. And they did a great job, a wonderful transfer from a 16mm print, and it's a really, really fascinating film, beautifully, beautifully done on Blu-ray. If you are trying to build your silent film collection, by all means, definitely consider A Page of Madness. And also included on here is Henwar Rodekiewicz. No, I've mutilated that name too. Portrait of a Young Man, which is also from the Black Hawk Films collection of David Shepard, who our dear LAFCA, LA Film Critics Organization, honored a few years ago before he passed. So David Shepard was able to produce these restorations before he passed on, and both of them are worthwhile. So, but Portrait of a Young Man is good and has a lovely score on it. But the one you really want to get this for is A Page of Madness, which is just really, really fascinating and breathtaking.
Yes. Shall we do a few more of these?
Yeah, let's get a couple of those.
Because it's on top, and because this movie has the Car Wash. I
love Car Wash.
I
still do.
1976 film Car Wash. So 1976.
Michael Schultz, baby.
Michael Schultz, who I hasten to point out, because most people did not know this, and I did not know this as a young man. I did not know this in 1976 when I was 14, 15 years old watching this movie. I didn't know Michael Schultz was a black man.
Oh, that's because Schultz.
Well, his name's Schultz. My last name's Cogshell, so I'm an idiot on multiple levels there. But I was dense enough to not know when I was a teenager. The director of Cooley High and several films that I've been watching was this black man who was a workaday director in Hollywood, even 45 and 50. If Michael Schultz still works, by the way. Yeah. You're talking about him in the past tense like he's dead or something. Yeah. No, he's probably working someplace shooting something right now. So this was a man who, along with Ivan Dixon and ironically Bill Duke, who was in Car Wash, are among a few journeyman black filmmakers who have been working since the late 60s. I think Ivan Dixon made Nothing But a Man, probably in the late 60s.
Yeah.
And so that was Michael Short. So but now, that notwithstanding...
Spook Who Sat by the Door was...
Spook Who Sat by the Door. That wasn't... That's Ivan?
That's Ivan, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be...
73?
About 73.
Probably
That was after Nothing But a Man.
Yeah.
And you got Franklin Ajayi here. You got Richard Pryor doing that thing that he did back in the day before anybody else did it, where he plays 3 or 4 or 5 different characters.
Fantastic.
And here's the thing about the wonderful Rolls Royce songs that came out of the soundtrack. You know, it's fun. I learned to play every one of those songs on the piano in my church. Mm-hmm. Every one of those songs. This movie is amazingly funny today, but this is the thing about Car Wash. As funny as it was, and as much of a community touchstone that it was to the black community in the middle 70s. And I'm
going to say something about that in a second.
This movie is incredibly dramatic.
Yeah.
Deeply moving.
Yeah.
Very funny, cultural, all of that, but incredibly dramatic and deeply moving. There's a scene in this movie with Ivan Dixon and Bill Duke, when Bill comes back to rob the guy. I'm giving away the movie. I'm sorry. You know, all that kind of stuff. It will simply break your heart. This movie is that good. So, 1976, also written by Joel Schumacher.
Yeah.
You know, the fairly flamboyant gay white man.
Yeah.
Writing a movie about a car wash full of black...
Who also wrote and directed the original Sparkle, let's not forget.
Exactly. Yeah. And was Woody Allen's what? I'm going to say set director, set designer, production designer. Anyway, he
was originally a production designer.
A production designer, that's what it was. Yeah. You know, the Tigerland, you know. And so anyway, all of that, you sort of like worked its way back through. And, you know, Antonio Fargas, fantastic.
I love Antonio Fargas. So here's my question to you. Could there have been a barber shop without Car Wash?
Oh, absolutely not. These things are on a wire connected together, which we don't, which is a very, very astute sort of connections you make, which I've made before, but most people don't see that connection. Yeah. There's a through line there, and the thing of it is, Ice Cube would tell you that. Yeah, Ice Cube would know that. Yeah. You know, he would have been a very young child when that movie came out. He would have been born, but he would have been really, really small. So he would have saw this movie on VHS.
Sure,
that's where he would have saw it. Yeah, and you know, and you're telling me that movie, Tim Story, you know, all those guys from 25 years ago. Of course it is. Of course it is. Yeah.
All right. Hit that next
one. Shall we do it? All right. Trespass. This is the Walter Hill Trespass from 1992.
Yes.
Walter Hill, of course, we connect to all sorts of extremely important films, our Alien films and Last Man Standing and a whole bunch of stuff. So this was Walter Hill. Early directing. Writers Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis. For this movie. The biggest thing I remember about this movie, though, was a big deal. The late Bill Paxton, Ice-T, Ice Cube. I'm sorry. It's just funny to me. Yeah. The two guys named Ice.
Yeah.
William Sadler. This was a neat movie. What was funny about this movie is back in the day, everyone was worried that this movie was too violent. And we were just talking about Peckinpah a second ago. So this is 20 years after the Peckinpah film. Yeah. This film comes along and people... Anyway, this is kind of a neat release from Shout Select Collector's Edition. Has all kinds of really neat stuff on it, including interviews with Sadler and Bob Gale and producer Neil Canton. And some stunt stuff and some behind-the-scenes stuff. And so a music video. Music videos were just sort of becoming a regular part in the early 90s, a regular part of a film's distribution, particularly if you have a film that has Ice-T and Ice Cube in it. You had to sort of connect all these things together. The entire time, of course, the sort of political establishment is going bananas because, you know, Ice-T is out there doing his thing and Ice Cube is doing his thing and it's bleeding over into Hollywood. All very interesting sort of... Most funny thing, it's not a very good movie. Not a very good movie at all. Yeah. But what are you going to do? Cheech and Chong's next movie, there was a period when Cheech, Marion, and Tommy Chong made all of their sort of pot-smoking movies. Of course, with the legalization of pot, pretty much every place in the United States, state by state anyway, these movies seem silly now.
They do.
So,
they really do.
What are you going to do?
I just lost track of them at a certain point. When I was a
They
kid,
were always bad.
They were
never good. They were simply antisocial.
They were anti-establishment.
The neat thing about this movie, Cheech, Marion, Cheech Marion was ripped, Holmes.
Yeah,
And he would
was.
say it like that. Always ripped, Holmes. Guns like you would not believe. Pecs Tommy Chong, too, dude.
Yeah.
Those guys were ripped and looked fantastic.
Well, they had the
back
time.
in the day.
They had the time to do it.
The Unholy, which is was an okay movie of the time. Lionsgate film.
This is one of those one of the Vestron collector's series now. Everybody,
Ben Cross, yeah.
They're digging up the old Vestron library and paying homage to the VHS generation with these. So this is for the nostalgia crowd, right? This is if you're like, if you have nostalgia about, oh, I remember I had that on VHS and it looked really crappy.
And the neat thing that they do is it's late enough in cinema that they thought to keep everything so that they have every single thing that happened on the set of that movie. They can put it on this DVD as a special feature, so featurettes and all that kind of crap. So.
All right, gonna roll through a few licensing deals that we got right now. Deja Vu with Jacqueline Smith is a really, really interesting movie from 1985. We forget Jacqueline Smith actually did do things other than Charlie's Angels, and one of them is this really interesting 1985 movie directed by Anthony Richmond and produced by none other than our favorite producers of all time, Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus of Canon Films. These are 3 films now that we have from the Olive collection, all of them licenses from MGM and Paramount. This is the MGM license, and it's MGM and 20th, MGM through 20th. But, this was when Canon was trying to be a little bit more legit with a few things, and they were trying to not just be the house that did Chuck Norris movies and ninja movies.
As if there was a problem with that, but go on.
Yeah, and so they went and they hired Anthony Richmond, who was a very, very good cinematographer, did The Man Who Fell to Earth, to make the transition to direct. And this is sort of an interesting look at a marriage, at relationships. It's got a kind of a past life angle to it, and there's not much you can sort of say that doesn't give things away, other than it reminds me, looking at it in hindsight, a lot of Dead Again.
Kenneth Branagh.
The Kenneth Branagh film. There's sort of a lot of Dead Again going on here. Which is interesting. It makes me wonder if there wasn't some connection between the two films. Anyway, so great music, by the way, from Pino Donaggio. Really, really interesting. Who, of course, did a lot of great music for Brian De Palma movies. And also from Olive, we have the Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis movie, Money from Home. Hilarious, hysterical, lots of fun. I love all the Dean and Jerry movies. This is from 1953. Kind of fresh off of their television series, and it's just absolutely riotous. It's it's all the stuff all the shtick they usually do, and Jerry Lewis plays a veterinarian apprentice, and the whole thing takes place around a racehorse. They learned from the Marx Brothers a day at the races. Racehorse. The environment of a racetrack is a great place for comedy.
The physical comedy in that one is it's fantastic.
Terrific. And then Nicholas Ray, who is most famous for doing Rebel Without a Cause and King of Kings.
They Live by Night.
He did The Savage Innocents.
Oh, Quinn and O'Toole.
Yes, good one. Good for you. That is, you pulled that. There's a stack of documentaries separating you from this. You did.
That's deep. That one's deep.
Tim dug deep on that one.
Some Japanese chick.
Yeah, Nicholas Ray actually adapted this himself. From a novel, Top of the World, which was written by Hans Rusch, who had some role in the screenplay as well. It's a very strange writing credit, but screenplay by Nicholas Ray, Rogue, adapted by Hans Rusch. So I'm not sure what the relationship was there, but in any case, Ray actually was very, very involved in this, and this was made in 1960, and it is. It's really quite an amazing bit of cinematography. The frozen tundra, Anthony Quinn. It's an Inuit story, but it's a survival story, but it's a psychological story. It's really quite interesting, and Peter O'Toole is very unusually good in it. And it's a really interesting discovery, and I totally applaud Olive for going out and unearthing that one.
Anthony Quinn could get away with playing
anything.
Just anything. Italians, Native Americans, Eskimos,
Absolutely.
Russians,
Absolutely.
guys from Brooklyn, and just all of that. Quinn.
Totally. And then we have an unbelievable set this month from the Twilight Time people, twilightimemovies.com. This is just a great set. 5 films. They've been releasing 4 lately. We got 5 this month. Charles Bronson in the Valachi Papers.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Saw that on broadcast television, loosely based on a true story.
Fantastic. Yeah. Based on the Peter Moss book. A really good screenplay by Stephen Geller. This is a really, really sharp film. He's in it with Jill Ireland, his wife, of course, at the time of many, many years. And it is a tough crime film, and it's one of his best performances because he doesn't have to really stretch a lot. He can stretch just enough. It's really good. The Valachi Papers is great. Then we also have The Quiet American, the original version.
Oh, because that was redone with Michael Caine and Brendan Fraser. Yeah.
So not the Michael Caine version. This is the Joseph Mankiewicz version of the Graham Greene novel, which is all still very sort of prefigures Vietnam, and a lot of it's really quite interesting. Very, very sharp from 1958. Beautiful, beautiful cinematography. Just really crisp. Audie Murphy in this as well, who actually can act when he's not playing himself, believe it or not. Yeah. And then we have the Bridge at Remagen, which is one of the better World War II bridge movies. There are quite a few of them. There's A Bridge Too Far, A Bridge at Remagen, The Bridges at Toko Ri, Bridge on the River Kwai. The World War II bridge genre would be a great series, wouldn't it? There's just so many.
They all involve somebody trying to blow up a bridge.
Yeah.
But some of them involve some people trying to save a bridge from being blown up.
Yeah, it's bridges were important. Again, talking, my mother's experience, it was the bridge on the Oder River. That's what they had to cross if they were going to make their way to Hanover, and where they would be safe with the Americans and the British and escape the Russians. They had to make it across the bridge on the Oder River. And if that bridge were blown up, which they were trying to do, bombing runs while they're running across the bridge and tanks going across the bridge with refugees, you're screwed. That bridge is the difference between Russians, raping and killing everyone in the family, and Americans and the English saying, welcome to the promised land.
We don't think about that. We don't think about it so much anymore.
No.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
So the Bridge at Remagen is a really fun, old-fashioned World War II. I mean, everybody involved in this is just they're of that certain generation. 1969, John Gillerman, before he ruined his career making the remake of King Kong for Dino De Laurentiis. David Wolper, who was sort of the mega producer of the era. Elmer Bernstein, who'd been scoring things since the Ten Commandments in 1956. He is at his peak here. This is a big, muscular, beautiful score. You get the isolated music track for that score, which is fantastic. This is a wonderful movie. I love this movie. And I am also very fond of the 1954 Hell and High Water, also on Twilight Time Blu-ray. From the 20th Century Fox library, this is a darker film. This is a Samuel Fuller movie with Richard Widmark kind of channeling all of Samuel Fuller's darkest instincts. And this is a Richard Widmark is moving a nuclear submarine headed for the Arctic, where there's going to be trying to forestall nuclear war with the Russians. And it's the early Cold War period right after World War II, and nuclear anxiety is at a fever pitch. This is a really, really interesting movie, very, very sharp, based on a book, and directed like mad by Samuel Fuller. Richard Widmark, of course, just brings the intensity like nobody's business. And then the last Twilight Time title here is a double feature, and I cannot be more happy that this is out. This, I hope, is a harbinger of things to come, because there are a lot of Jackie Chan movies that need to come out. This, in the original Cantonese, is a double feature of Jackie Chan's Snake in the Eagle's Shadow and the original Drunken Master. The transfers are as good as you could hope. These are Jackie Chan's first two starring roles from 1978. And they are certainly films of the era, but you see the kung fu comedy that he will pioneer is being formed here. In terms of Jackie Chan's career, this is where it begins. These are formative films; they are crucial films, and I'm just thrilled that these are on Blu-ray, because I never thought I'd get these. So I'm hoping that a lot of the other missing Jackie Chan films that are not on Blu-ray, like Drunken Master 2, will eventually make it out. This has a commentary by Rick Myers and Jeff Yang, which I'm a little mixed on, because Rick Myers has done like 170 commentaries for martial arts films, and I'm a little sick of Rick Myers. I have a certain degree of respect for him, but he keeps saying the same things over and over, and about a third of the things that he says are wrong. So, as people may or may not know, I wrote a book on Jackie Chan, which you can now get for like 97 cents on Amazon. And I don't see a penny of it. But, these also both directed by Yuen Woo Ping. in his early days.
So
So,
that's back when the sort of comparisons between Buster Keaton and sort of the post Bruce Lee
yes,
sort of era.
yes.
And
Everyone's,
everything.
it's when he was making his pitch to fill the void left with Bruce's death.
The Hong Kong films didn't necessarily need to be extremely sort of violent for violence sake. There's an element of comedy that he can insert into all of that. Over here, real quick, from Mill Creek, the 4-movie Salma Hayek collection. This is very interesting. Particularly as I think about Salma Hayek, and because this reminds me of how long I've been watching Salma Hayek now, and who is still fantastic. Recently saw Beatrice at Dinner, a current film that she happens to be in, her and John Lithgow and all that kind of. So we hear from 1998, we have the Velocity of Gary, which of course gave us Thomas Jane. As the movie started, Thomas Jane played Gary in that movie. That. So that's 20 years ago right there. And then from 2000, we have Time Code, which was a highly experimental film at the time. Mike Figgis, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Sort of star-studded thing. Saffron Burris, a whole bunch of people.
That was what he spent his capital from leaving Las
from
Vegas
leaving
on.
Las Vegas. And I thought it was a truly interesting film, at least in terms of that technology. Again, remember, this is 2000. This is 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And he's working in video. And he's moving us around the screen where he has at least 4, sometimes 6 things. And the way he's directing your attention is through the use of audio, by raising the audio on the frame that he wants you to pay attention to at that moment while leaving the other things up on the screen. It's this whole sort of introducing sort of Hollywood story going on. Then we have Lonely Hearts, which of course is John Travolta and James Gandolfini from about the middle 2000s sometimes. And then another really early Spanish language film from Selma called Living It Up. So a neat little collection of the history of Salma Hayek there, and some of her better ones. Interesting that none of them involve Robert Rodriguez, who we always associate with Salma Hayek whenever we think about it. Head to head, 8 action films, head to head. Steven Seagal and Jean-Claude Van Damme. Look. I've poked fun at both Steven and Jean-Claude over the years. But the fact of the matter is, I'm kind of a fan of both of these guys, and certainly have been a huge fan of both of these guys at various different times in their career. This 8-film collection involves some of the films that I really, it involves Maximum Risk, which is a sort of mid-career Jean-Claude Van Damme film that I liked a lot. We can go all the way back to Cyborg and all that kind of stuff with him, but I like that a lot, that movie. Knockoff, of course, which was an early Jean-Claude Van Damme film. And then you have stuff like Into the Sun with Steven Seagal and Universal Soldier: The Return, which is not as good as Universal Soldier, but whatever. Second in Command, Hard Corps, Double Team, which of course is Jean-Claude and Dennis Rodman, if I'm not mistaken, who, recall that when he wasn't an international, whatever the hell he's doing now, and he wasn't beating people up for the Detroit Pistons, he was kind of
making movies.
Bad movie star. And then, lastly, 3 classics from Stephen King: The Stand, The Langoliers, and The Golden Years, all of which were television films. And to one extent or another, fairly interesting. But if you're a fan of Stephen King books or films, you definitely gonna want to grab this. So from 1991, The Golden Years; from 1995, The Langoliers; and from 1994, The Stand.
All right, we are going to have to let the documentaries roll until another time. I'm going to wrap out with the latest Kino releases, and an unbelievable set of great Blu-rays from Kino have arrived. And if you're saving your bucks for some Blu-rays, you're going to want to add a whole bunch of these. Gene Kelly and Natalie Wood in Marjorie Morningstar. Here's why I love Marjorie Morningstar. Gene Kelly and Natalie Wood.
Yeah.
That's really it.
Yeah.
I love them both so much. I otherwise really just don't even care how much of a kind of a silly backstage schmaltzy melodrama this is. I really don't care. I absolutely love this. It's based on a Herman Wouk novel, and Herman Wouk, of course, wrote The Winds of War and all that.
The big sort of
it's all big soapy soap opera cast against backdrop of war and other things. But Herman Wouk basically just wrote schmaltz. He's an airport novelist who made good. So that shouldn't really mean a whole lot here. However, it is just watching these 2 actors is just absolutely wonderful. It's just wonderful, and there's not a whole lot to it, but it's terrific.
For whatever reason, Gene and Fred Astaire, and actually I do know the reason, were the two actors who it never bugged me watching them play against younger female leads, significantly younger female leads, like 30 years younger female leads sometimes, which bugs me today. But it never bugged me about them, and it still doesn't. For one thing, they were both so wonderfully fit and youthful. They both acknowledged in all of those films the age difference. Yeah. It wasn't like they were pretending that even if the film was so, they acknowledged it. They're like, so I don't know. There's something about that. They did it correctly back then. They don't do it that way anymore.
And Roland Emmerich, when he was, Roland Emmerich always wanted to direct Hollywood movies. This is a guy who is he's German, he's growing up in Germany, he's making movies in Germany, but he's not doing German movies. He's not trying to make serious movies. He's not doing, what you're expected to do in Germany. He's making just really gnarly science fiction genre movies. Yeah. And he's making them in English because he's saying, please, take
Hollywood.
me. Hollywood, please take me. And when he made Making Contact, he said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Poltergeist, and then I'm going to take all of those Twilight Zone evil ventriloquist dummy episodes, and then I'm going to take The Exorcist, and I'm going to mash them all together in a big genre. That way, if they want anybody to direct any of those kinds of films, I'm their man.
They will know.
They will know. I'm their man. I can do it all. And so that's what Making Contact is. It's like Poltergeist meets, all the ventriloquist dummy stuff. It's just meets Chucky, meets, whatever. It's just all here. Yeah. It's Carrie crossed with, all of that stuff. So it's a great big Hollywood potpourri and a big homage to all that genre stuff. And it's actually a lot of fun. It's better than a lot of his American Hollywood stuff.
Yeah, Dean Devlin's not there.
No, that's true. He's not. Yeah. So this is a lot of fun, and it's only 79 minutes. You can do this while you're fixing dinner. Just throw it up and watch it. It's great. Kirk Douglas, the Indian fighter. This is an Andre de Toth Western, also starring Walter Matthau from 1955, with Kirk Douglas. Beautiful color cinematography, by the way. Really nice. With Kirk Douglas as a guy who used to kill Injuns, but now he's got to prevent them from killing the wagon train, the pioneers, and he's got to be a peacemaker. So it's a
very early, sort of at the very beginning of that revisionist.
Yes,
sort of very early on,
which is
sort of culminated in the early '70s with Big Little Man.
Little Big Man.
Big Man.
A lot of that has to do with the fact that Kirk Douglas is that guy.
Yeah, Spartacus.
Paths of Glory. Yeah. Right. He's that guy. He's very much a revisionist in terms of all of these genres.
Which, of course, has to do with the fact that, in fact, he's just this little Jewish guy who, was fighting against, the system his entire life.
Yeah, true. Yeah. But that's also Andre de Toth. Andre de Toth, who, is one of the famous bad boys of Westerns and filmmaking with the eye patch and the whole thing, right? I mean, so, he's Andre de Toth is a little bit like Samuel Fuller with a little more self-control. Yeah. Or Peckinpah not drunk. Yeah. That's Andre de Toth. So, this is a good film. This is a really good film. Alan Hale is in here. Lon Chaney is in this. It's a really interesting cast, and Walter Matthau in a definitely a minor part, but he kills it. He kills it. And Sheriff Hootkloot from the ongoing Kino releases of the DePatie Freeling collection. All of these kind of look like Pink Panther cartoons, as they would, and so they're sort of, it's the same mindset, sort of the same artwork. And I have not seen most of these shorts. I wasn't even familiar with a lot of them, but they have the same sensibilities as all the, the Inspector Clouseau shorts and all that. So if you like those, it's fun enough. The Shoe Must Go On is actually very, very funny. As the Tumbleweed Turns got a little snicker out of me, and there's a couple others that are really, really funny. So that's those were aired originally in the early 1970s. And then here's how we're going out today. Bob Hope movies and Bob Hope and Bing Crosby movies have been in short supply on Blu-ray, but no longer. Kino is getting them out there, and all that stuff that's been public domain for the longest time, released by Universal and other people over and over and over. Finally, we are getting them in proper Blu-ray releases, and they all look really, really good. Source materials aren't perfect on all of them, but Bob Hope is so much funnier when the resolution is good, and you can see all the twitches in the face and the eyes and the eye movements, and there's so much. It's just when the crispness is there, it's funnier. And we have the first one is the Lemon Drop Kid, which I have always loved. Lemon Drop Kid is just really, really, really funny. Just classic comedy from 1951. Co-written by Frank Tashlin, who had, of course, course, go on to direct a lot of really, really great Jerry Lewis movies. This is really, really fun, and based on material originally by Damon Runyon. It's quite good. Quite good. So again, it gets into the racetrack stuff, and Bob Hope, choose the scenery the same way that Jerry Lewis does, and the same way the Marx Brothers did. But it's great. My favorite brunette with Dorothy Lamour. We love Dorothy Lamour.
Loved him some Dorothy Lamour.
And speaking of Lon Chaney, he and Peter Lorre show up in this, bringing the creep factor that they brought to so many other great horror films. My favorite, Dorothy Lamour was just such a she just had such classic. She's not even a conventional beauty.
Yeah.
She was, and I hate to say exotic because that word tends to now take on like racial overtones now, which it shouldn't. But she really was an exotic beauty at the time.
Yeah, dark and with those eyes.
It was just, she was unconventionally beautiful by Hollywood standards. And
particularly the Hollywood of the day, which the buxom blonde bombshell was the thing at the moment.
She didn't have that, and she uses it to her advantage. It's terrific. There's a whole plot here with a hired hitman, and it's based on a kind of a noir structure, but it doesn't matter. It's just Bob Hope doing his thing. And then we add Bing Crosby to the Bob Hope and Dorothy Lamour tandem in The Road to Rio, which is one of my favorite road movies. Just because it's great. Norman Z. MacLeod directed this. It's just all that road stuff. The Andrews sisters are in this as well. It's just an awful lot of fun. That trio has never, ever, ever gotten old. They are so funny and so wonderful. And did they go to Rio? No. They went to a back lot and they dressed it up to look like Rio. But
you put enough fruit in a basket on somebody's head, you're in Rio.
And they also didn't go to Bali, but the road to Bali is also an awful lot of fun. The road to Bali actually has some of the. I think The Road to Rio is a better overall movie, but I think The Road to Bali has funnier individual moments. There are moments in Road to Bali which are just completely off the wall. They're just bizarre, they're crazy, they're wacky, they're nutty, they're just insane, and they're hysterical. The gorilla stuff is it's beyond classic. It's really a lot of fun. So that also is here. And both of these, you should have Road to Rio and Road to Bali, but Road to Bali has some great commentary on it. It has a Bob Hope promo, and then it has a commentary by Marc Evanier and my friend Michael Schlesinger, who is absolutely the bomb on this. Just does a great job. Schlesinger is an ace expert of this period and this genre and everything else. Used to be a repertory distributor, so he knows the whole scene, and he brings so much knowledge and intensity to it. So it's great. So wonderful. So those four, add those to your Bob Hope collection on Blu-ray, and expect plenty more. Road to Bali, Road to Rio, My Favorite Brunette, and The Lemon Drop Kid. Tim, thank you.
My pleasure.
This is Mark will hopefully.
What's he doing? Watching baseball TV?
He's doing going to some Mets games or something. I don't know.
Okay,
whatever he's doing. Yeah. So yes, Mark's in New York. We're wishing everybody in the United States at least a very happy 4th of July holiday. Have a great time. Enjoy the fireworks. Everybody overseas, enjoy not having a holiday, but just make the best of it. And I will be off to Jordan. I'll try to do some. I don't know what the internet connection is going to be like, but if I have opportunity, I will post some things to the Facebook group, and I will see everybody when I'm back. So sometime around the end of July, we will have another show. Until then, see you all.